Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 30th, 2024 meeting of the Town Board. This is our work session. The board has been in executive session, and I'd like to ask for a motion to open the work session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we are here today joined by the members of the Sustainability Advisory Board. As I said this year, I'd like to increase our collaboration with our advisory boards and committees, and so I thank you all for being here today. We're going to discuss your initiatives and projects and, you know, current issues that you'd like to address.
Okay.
So if you'd like to go around the table, we can introduce each other.
Okay.
And especially for the community watching, we all know each other.
Right.
Do you
All
want
right, my name's Kent Thomas. I'm co-chair of the Sustainability Advisory Board.
Jennifer Mavis Flatt, co-chair.
Rick Stein, member.
Jordan Silver, hopefully student member.
Kathy Shriver.
Mike Corso, I guess newest member.
Students are the newest members.
Jordan's our newest.
Yeah.
Nice try.
32-year residence.
I'm Holly McCall, a board member.
Allie Shemtop, town board.
Jeremy Saland, Town Board.
I should specify.
And Vicky Tip, town supervisor. So we have a nice agenda here, and I would like to have you take it away.
We have a slide presentation, if that's okay.
Yes.
All right.
Can everyone see if I'm over here?
Just be in your box.
Can you see?
Wait,
Okay.
hold on.
Oh, we forgot to introduce
This is
Jen.
the one I want.
You wanna
All right,
go
let me
back and
stop.
introduce her?
You just have the slides.
There you go.
Jen. We forgot to give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Klein, Town Board Member.
Okay, and that's Lauren Cascone and Deputy Town Clerk, and Tiffany, Assistant to our Town Administrator, on the screen. Okay.
Okay,
Great.
Try this again.
Yep.
Doesn't have that. All right.
That's okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for having us. We really appreciate this opportunity. And what we wanted to do is go over our recent projects that we've done and talk a little bit about our future initiatives with the town board. But before we do that,
Next.
what we thought would be helpful is to talk about what we see as our mission and responsibilities. And the first thing is, which we've been doing for years, is advise the town board on solid waste collection, disposal, and reduction, and on recycling best practices. If you look at what we've done over a number of years, we helped with the RFP process and then reviewing proposals that came in. So we see us continuing to do that with the town board. What we also feel is one of our roles is to identify opportunities for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and assisting with implementation of those opportunities. What we've done a lot recently is educating residents on green initiatives and sustainable options. And what we've just started doing is supporting student-led projects. So the areas that we wanted to talk about today are our recycling center projects, our greenhouse gas emissions inventories that we've done, the EV show we just recently had, sustainability education, Westchester Power, climate smart communities and clean energy communities, and then our future projects.
Okay, so the first topic up is recycling center projects. The first one here is we started undertaking a redesign of the signs at the recycling center. There was several objectives. One was to make them more fun and interactive and in that colorful, et cetera. And another one was to try and reduce contamination in the recycling stream. The worst culprit is the commingled stream. and people throw all kinds of things in there, and unfortunately, 1 out of 3 loads is sent to the incinerator as opposed to actually any of it being recycled. So for as much as we can reduce that, it will help the environment. So we'd like to continue with that. So the idea behind the science also is, if you see in the lower right-hand corner, there's a QR code. And the idea is that the QR code, when people take their phones and use them to shoot the QR code, it's going to take them to more detailed information on, and there's 9 recycling streams within the recycling center. It'll take them to more detailed information on each of the 9 recycling streams, what they can recycle and what they shouldn't recycle. So we're hoping that, like in that commingled bin, that they'll not put plastic bags, and they'll not put lawn furniture, and we'll try and reduce that so that we could reduce those loads sent to the incinerator. Okay, so Recycle Right was a project that was introduced a little over 3 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, and we've been promoting it, and it contains a collection calendar, so every address in town is defined, and their collection schedule for curbside collection is there. We also do put in paper shredding, and we put in county events such as the household recycling days, so that's all available in there. It also contains a recyclopedia, which has over 200 materials in it. When somebody searches for one of those materials, they get more detailed information on how to recycle it, or how to reuse it, or how to donate it. So it's not just the recycling at the recycling yard, it's other methods of disposing of items in an environmentally friendly way. So unfortunately, with Recycle Right, we were getting it through Sustainable Westchester, and it was a community package where there were 18 municipalities within Westchester that were participating. And the county, the DEF, Department of Environmental Facilities, has decided to purchase another product called Recycle Coach. And because of that, Sustainable Westchester will be dropping support for Recycle Right at the end of October. Now, there are options. I'm not going to get too far into the details here. An option would be to keep Recycle Right. It's rather expensive. It's like $7,000 or $8,000 a year, although, well, I'll get into that in a second. Another option is the county will provide us with the calendaring function from Recycle Coach. We would have to purchase a recycle portion of it, of the software, which they call What Goes Where. And we could modify that to our needs, because right now what the DEF is doing is all of the recycling information only applies to the refuse district, which is most of the county. There are only 7 municipalities, of which we're 1 that do not belong to the refuse district. The other option is to do something on the website and have pages there, which we'll be doing temporarily with those QR codes, and have the recycling information defined there. But that's a future discussion. Okay, greenhouse gas emissions. This is a big focus that we have, the SAB has. We've been trying to reduce them in town and beyond town if we can. We did the previous greenhouse gas emissions reports and studies were done on 2005 data. In the fall of 2022, we embarked on a partnership with Hudson Valley Regional Council. They were running some cohorts involved with doing the governmental operations, greenhouse gas operations. So we participated in that. So we found that the town, 2,900 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. Equivalent means it includes nitrogen compounds and sulfur dioxide, is what Newcastle emits or emitted in 2021. And the whole idea behind the report is to find out where all of those emissions come from and to try and have a plan to reduce those emissions at their source. So we completed the report, the draft report in April of 2023. And the information in this report will be used or should be used in a new climate action plan, which hopefully we'll be undertaking, because the last climate action plan is from 2011. So it's a little bit outdated. But I just want to give a couple of statistics, which is, as far as greenhouse gases, wastewater and water treatment create more than half of them. And energy costs for the town, more than half of it is from just the water treatment plant itself in Millwood. So Newcastle has seen reductions between 2005 and the 2021. Most of it has been passive reductions. In other words, cafe standards for vehicles improving, the grid itself having cleaner power because there's more renewable power in resources. And so overall, but we have seen using LED, we've replaced a lot of our lighting with LEDs. There have been other actions that have been taken to reduce the greenhouse gases to some extent.
And the report does touch briefly on some suggestions for reducing greenhouse gas emissions more.
So currently underway is the community portion of that report. So this identifies sources of greenhouse gas emissions from community activities. So we're talking about things like electric usage, heating and cooling, transportation, solid waste. Again, this is going to be a guide to where we can save and where education for both the municipality itself and the residents can be done to try and reduce these gases. So we've all the data has been gathered, and a draft report is in process at the moment. Again, it's input. There's going to be suggestions as input to the climate action plan. Okay, electric vehicle show in the fall of 2022, and unfortunately the weather didn't cooperate, so we got rained out then. But we did hold one on June 10th, 2023 at the Chappaqua Farmers Market in conjunction with the Pleasantville Climate Smart Communities Task Force and the Farmers Market. We had 20 owners with vehicles on display, and the idea behind having owners there is that they're a trusted source for people to get information about the EVs as opposed to getting it from like a dealer or somebody else like that. So we tried to do this, and we also tried to promote the EV adoption through education. So we had an information booth, we had lots of literature there, and we also had, in order to try and bring in our younger generation, we had children's activities. So we had coloring books, but we also had a friend of the board, Karen Basic, who's in town. A lot of people know her. She's terrific with kids, incredible. She developed something where she took all recycled materials and had the children build their own cars out of the recycled materials. And then she also had an incline where they could race the cars against one another if they wanted to. And we had another scavenger hunt activity where we had stickers at each of the cars to try and encourage all the children to go and look at all the cars and talk, and their parents to talk to the drivers. We had a master sheet where they were supposed to complete the master sheet. When they did, they got a prize, and of course it included candy.
It's very engaging.
It's okay.
They got a little car.
And they got it, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Jordan?
Yeah, so Newcastle Going Green is a monthly podcast that me, another student, and one of the board members who's not here tonight work on every month. And it's just a podcast that we get to educate people, very accessible on a bunch of different platforms. And we do a lot of different kinds of work with this podcast. So in November, we had a Sustainable Holidays podcast, and we talked about what you could have on your dinner table instead of a turkey. And same things for around Christmas time. And last Senator, we talked with Assembly Member Chris Burdick, and it was really cool because we got to see kind of the initiatives he's been taking in the government. And February's podcast will be with State Senator Pete Hartman. So we're excited to talk to him. And Newcastle Going Green is just a great way to educate people fast. It's engaging. We try to make it short, like under 20 minutes, so people can listen to it on a car ride or just in their house. And this podcast reaches many different ages. It's not just for one specific group, which I kind of like about this podcast. And it's definitely important to educate people through as many ways as possible. And Newcastle Going Green gets many downloads. I see the reports every week. So it's nice to see that we're getting attention for our work.
Yeah, I'm a loyal listener.
And it's been going for 3 years now, and there's lots of episodes out there, from EVs to clean heating and cooling to solar. I mean, there's a lot of topics that have been covered.
And you can find them all on the town's website.
All right, Kathy.
So we had a SAB Tip of the Week project that morphed out of a request from the town board to give them a list of topics that could be shared as a weekly tip through the e-newsletter. And as we were developing this late last year, I had kind of worked with the co-chairs, and I said, we said, look, if the town does it, then we don't have those other avenues of communication, like sharing it on our Facebook page. We have a Facebook page for educational initiatives and other information, and also Instagram. So every week, when possible, due to timing and scheduling, we are attempting to do a weekly post in the e-news that's timely. Sometimes it'll be talking about the Newcastle Going Green, and other things will be just an easy tip for someone to do around their home that can save energy or greenhouse gases or save water, some sort of topic. And the goal is to just increase awareness through our different communication mediums. So that's one topic. And then you want me to continue with this?
Please.
So one other thing that was mentioned earlier is our involvement with some of the student-led projects. And this Eagle Scout project by Teddy Eaton was something that was brought to us last year. It was a service project to promote climate change awareness. And Teddy had developed a lot of educational videos and other content that we could share through the town website and the SAB social media. And this was the second project that we worked on with Scouts. We also had worked on one with a Girl Scout Gold project during COVID, so it was around 2020. And that example is in Gedney Park with the bee houses in Gedney Park. And then one of the things that we felt was that a lot of students have ideas, a lot of the Scout projects, but there's other students that have ideas and initiatives that are really grassroots, and it bubbles up to being able to not only increase awareness, but also excite kind of the adults and the parents and other community members and just creating advocacy in our youth, such as also like Jordan's example with the Going Green podcast, which was an initiative by some of our student board members. So we were very excited to support this Eagle Scout in his project, and it was also a win-win for everyone.
And just to mention another student-led project, we had a student come to us and ask for advice on getting electric buses in the school district. And so while we're not involved in the project itself, we were able to direct him to resources, and then one of our board members said that he would provide some additional guidance so that how to work through the school district and get some help there. So
Right, so the idea is to provide support and also make connections for them to carry on with their projects. So, and we did that with this, where we made a connection with somebody who runs fleet operations sales for a bus company in Massachusetts, and now she's involved with the project.
So I'll just talk briefly about Westchester Power, which I think everyone knows what Westchester Power is. Our default supply here in Newcastle is the 100% renewable power, and you have to opt out. So virtually all residents are in receiving renewable energy. But unfortunately, if you look at the chart on the screen, the rate had been very competitive with Con Ed historically, and now if you look at the red line compared to the blue lines, the red line is the Westchester Power rate right now, which is not exactly competitive, but it is renewable. And so the yellow line, or kind of orange line, is the standard supply. Con Ed does not offer renewable energy supply, but its standard supply is lower than the current Westchester Power rate. So what we're seeing are some residents are opting out of being in the Westchester Power program, and we've lost about 7.5% since the start of this new contract. Well, the contract started in November of 2022, and we've lost about 7.5%. And it's a 2-year contract, so it's expiring this October. And we'll have to see what happens going forward. I think just to reiterate, though, kind of does not offer a renewable supply. And so I think a lot of residents like the fact that we are offering that within this program and continue to use it.
It's also just supply, okay? And supply generally has been about a third of your bill. Delivery has been about 2/3. It's fluctuated a little bit. The supply has gone up quite a bit. So when you talk about, maybe it's 25% more than the Con Ed's rate, it does mean something, but in the scheme of things, it's not a large percentage.
What I also wanted to point out is the rate did increase in January because of a New York transmission charge, so it increased slightly, and so people may notice that their rate has gone up a little bit this year compared to last year.
Very briefly, there's no such thing really as an average house, especially in a community that has old houses and new houses and different size houses. But it's hard for someone to quantify unless they understand what that means. And you could show me a graph and for a kilowatt hour or whatever it is, that doesn't mean anything to the average person. It would be great if someone could understand and see, for example, that just like your taxes, that's the county and the town make up only a small piece as opposed to the school district, for example. So someone could see what that actually means. I think that's very valuable, because if it turns out, I can't count anyone else's money, but if it's tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars, it's, someone may be willing to absorb that cost as opposed to seeing 25%.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's maybe a lot of residents don't understand the breakdown, like Kent just explained, that it's delivery.
Supply versus delivery.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you could visualize that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was a document out there about how to read your bill and understand.
We had put it in not the most recent mailing, but an earlier mailing when we had
Even if
rolled
you,
out
even if though if
Westchester
you can
Power.
do just an example, like 3,000 square foot house.
Would it be helpful for us to have a little article in the
Maybe a
e-news that?
podcast episode
Yeah, that would
too.
be
We could
Yeah.
promote.
Really good.
Okay.
Maybe
I
that.
feel like it's gonna need visual.
I think a
Visuals,
visual.
visuals
Yeah,
help.
visuals
People
for
like
sure, and
half
then
of least
breaking
resistance.
down the visuals on a podcast episode or something.
I keep picturing Rob's $100 bill.
Yeah.
It's a very good vision.
All right.
Good idea.
So we'll write something up for an article for the e-news, I think, would be helpful.
Very good.
All right, that's all.
Yeah. So next we wanted to talk about climate smart communities and clean energy communities. And as most of you should know, we are silver certified. We became certified in 2022, and it's a certification that is for 5 years, so it expires in September of 2027. However, we became silver certified by completing 45 actions. Some of those actions, the way the program works, some of those actions have now expired. So we're talking about doing a recertification this year, which means taking those expired actions and updating them in some fashion. And if we get recertified this year, it gives us the opportunity to get points that could give us grant opportunities.
Could you give an example of what an expired action could be?
So we did, to get silver certified, we did 45 actions. And what that means is for some of the actions, we were just documenting things that the town had already done. And some of the actions were actions that we literally actually did. So for example, one action that the town had already done is it has a comprehensive plan. So we had to document the comprehensive plan and answer a bunch of questions and submit that as an action. An example of an action that we actually did was a fleet inventory, where we inventoried all the vehicles that the town has, which was a pretty involved process, but that was an action that took some time, and we submitted that.
Is 45 the magic number to get the silver certified, or is there a certain?
Each action, it's a huge list of actions. Each action has a different point level. So, like the comprehensive plan had a significant point level, I wanna say like 18 points. We became silver certified by having 300 points, actually 301 points. But each action, depending on the level of that action, gave you a different amount of points.
And what does the recertification process look like? Is it just redoing some of those steps?
So some
or
of the
adding more?
Yes, some of the actions, all we have to do is update the action, and we can, which will be easy. Some of the actions have gone away, so we won't be able to update them. We may come up with some new actions that we'll do, and we'll just need to look at it action by action. What are the 16 ones that have expired? Can we just update them? Which, something as simple as adopting a new resolution for who our coordinator and task force members are. That's an easy one. We just need you to adopt a resolution. But some of them, like the fleet inventory, will be a little more involved because we have to go through the whole process again of what are all the vehicles, what are their mileage, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll be more involved.
So I assume the higher point ones are the most impactful?
Yeah.
And the most amount of work for you.
Well, maybe not. The comprehensive plan is still the comprehensive plan, and that I think was 18 points. Another one that gave us a lot of points was we have a solar wall at the water treatment plant. And that gave us a lot of points, and I imagine all we need, I don't know if that one's expired, but that would be something that we still have it. And so we're still using it, and so we can still get points for it. So we just have to look at each one and see what it'll take.
But we'd have to have all the points ready to replace all the expired ones, because once you open it up, they'll take away all the expired points. So you can't just submit one 5-point action and expect to have it added on. But we do have, if I don't mind, do you want to talk about these, or do we have additional ones, and plus the climate action?
And when is your deadline?
We submitted the National Resource Inventory.
I don't think it was done. All right.
Do you have a deadline?
Well, there is no deadline. The deadline is 2027.
Right.
But if we get it in 2020, the sooner we get it in 2024, the sooner we can get points towards CEC, which is Clean Energy Communities, which Kent will talk about in a minute. And when we get those points, then when we get in a certain number of points, we get opportunities for grants. So it's kind of like we want to get it done because we want to get the grants. So our target is probably this summer. Like you can do it quarterly, so April or July or October, I think. Anyway, I think we'll target for July.
Yeah, I'm just going to mention that we do have some larger point scale actions that are probably ready. It's energy audits on buildings. There were three buildings that were done, but it wasn't ready in time for the last submission. Natural resources inventory, I don't believe, is completed at that point. If we do, in conjunction with these greenhouse gas emissions, do a new climate action plan, that's a lot of points. So we'll see how all of this plays out. So, and community campaigns, which I'll talk about in a second, wasn't a CSC action prior to the revamping of it about a year ago, but it is now. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So clean energy communities. Now, so CSC is kind of like the showpiece, and you get bronze or silver, but clean energy communities is where the money is. Okay. It's backed by grants, and so the program has been around. They reformulated it in December, and it's now CEC 3.0. and they also refunded it. They put some funding into it. But they greatly expanded the number of actions that are available within the program. And so much higher point levels. And they also expanded the community campaigns, which electric vehicles demand response, clean heating and cooling, and community solar are part of those. And there's actually some decent grant money available for those that would only used to be $5,000 per community campaign, but now it goes up to $30,000 for some of them. So they're great. So we have identified a area where we can get some grants. So the Hudson Valley Regional Council gave a webinar, and it was great. It explained the new 3.0, and we saw the opportunity. Right now we have 5,700 points. What happened last time when we reached the 5,000 point plateau, there's what are called designation grants for different levels of points. So 3, 5, 7. There was a 4 before, but when they revamped the program, they took it out. 9 is the highest. So we didn't. The town of Newcastle didn't get a grant for 5,000. So if the town of Newcastle submits one action that's approved, they will retroactively get that grant, and that's a $100,000 grant. Okay, so there have been 4 actions submitted since this webinar that Hudson Valley Regional Council did. So hopefully one of those will get approved soon, and so we'll get the grant money. There is the next level is 7,000, and there have been identified a couple of areas where we can submit for actions, which one is community distributed generation, which is basically community solar for the municipality. Okay, so back in 2021, when we had acting supervisor Saland here, we brought it to him, and he signed our participation with GNS Solar, who's a solar provider, to get some of our municipal electric accounts, they call them meters, up onto these solar arrays. And what we get in return is a 10% discount. So I'm not going to go into a lot of the details. There's a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of with credits for them and stuff that the town may not be receiving correctly right now, which really needs to be investigated. But
Okay.
but anyway, so the other one is the electric vehicle community campaign. So that plays right into, we were talking about the electrical vehicle show earlier. So that has 3 levels of grants, and it has 1,000 points behind it. The CDG is 300 points. But so if those have all been submitted, if those all come to fruition, it would be $302,500 in grants for the town. Okay.
So we just submitted those last week, working with the development department, and we hope to hear within a couple weeks, right?
Usually it's about 2 to 3 weeks. So we'll see.
That's
Now,
remarkably fast.
let me go back to the funding though. One of the issues here with the funding is it so they changed the way the funding was done. It used to be that it was done regionally, and so the Hudson Valley region was very active, and they depleted their funding very soon. That's why we didn't get any funding for the 5,000 level. They have done it statewide now. It's not limited to just the region, so which is much better for Newcastle. But it's $25 million in funding across all of the communities in the state. So it's first come, first serve. So it's very important that those get in. We don't know how many other communities are participating and trying to put in for grants, but some have also, like Bedford has 10,500 points, so they're going to be eligible for the 9,000 point level, which is like 250,000. So it's very possible the money will be depleted quickly, but we're hopeful, very hopeful.
Well, fingers crossed at $300,000 for the town.
Not bad.
Yeah.
We won't say no.
Right.
Okay. All right, future projects and initiatives. So we put a lot of emphasis on solar here. I think solar is something that's achievable, and it's a way of reducing the greenhouse gases in town. There was a study by well, let me get into that in a second. But anyway, rooftop solar. So one of the ones that we focus on is Chapac, because it seems like it's sort of low-hanging fruit. So we have asked Sustainable Westchester to do an analysis of rooftop solar, and they've come through with a preliminary analysis. But we asked them to include battery in it also, to see what we can do if that's gonna help us, or, it's gonna be a good return on investment or not. So hopefully they're gonna come back to us within a couple of weeks, maybe next month. It would be available to be reviewed and possibly a presentation. They have also indicated that they would be happy to be involved in any RFP process for Chapac because they've been through it before.
And we just want to mention that both Sabrina and Jill have been involved in discussions with solar on Chapac.
Considering solar rooftop elsewhere, we do have to do the analysis. The most promising one was Millwood Water Treatment Plant. One of the issues with it is there's so many obstructions on the roof pipes and things like that, and they've also put in new drain when they had the roof redone in the fall. I think it was the fall. They put in new drains which need to have access, so it's kind of a tough one. So really what we're down to in town is mostly smaller ones, which would be, there's nothing that's big enough to qualify for like a community solar kind of application on rooftop. And so it would be little ones here and there that the town would pay for and well, they wouldn't have to pay for it, but they would have it on their own property and it wouldn't be involved with the community solar project. So, but ground mounted solar, there may be some places, I'm not sure, we don't really have, like Mount Kisco has used their old transfer station, waste transfer station, because it was a brownfield. They used that for ground mounted. There may be something we find somewhere, but I'm not sure aware of anything.
It could be
at this point.
sometimes problematic, in terms of trees and vegetation.
Yeah.
I would personally look
Well,
elsewhere
I'm talking
because I
about
would.
open space that may exist currently that we could use. So,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we would look.
We're not
We don't know.
have anything in mind right now,
Okay.
actually.
and then solar canopies, I know the end of last year, Ecogy, a company, did a proposal for us of 2 installations, one at Allen Place behind Village Market and one Bank of America parking lot near Bell Middle School. We have to look at these again and see if we want to do something like this. If when the study is done on the train station property, potentially there'll be some parking lot areas there that could have solar canopies on them. And I don't know where else we might be able to do them. But just to get it, as far as the CEC, if we were to do the rooftop solar on Chapac, that would be eligible for I think it's 1,200 or 1,300 points in the CEC, and the solar canopies, either one of them would be eligible for another 1,500 points. So, there's other reasons to do things, So.
And we can use, if we get the grant money from the other submissions, we can use that grant money for the Chapac Solar, which could give us points to then give us opportunities for more grant money. So they kind of feed off of each other.
All right, Kathy.
Sure. So several years ago, the town board unanimously approved of the gas leaf blower seasonal ban, which runs from June 1.
June 1.
Like, oh no, where is it?
June 1.
June 1st to September 30th.
Right.
Annually. And one of the I believe it was very well received. We had a lot of positive response from the community. There was some negative response. And what we have anecdotally noticed was that compliance by companies and individuals has degraded since the first year it was implemented. And so last year there was a reporting scenario implemented where someone could email the town and communicate, but we haven't really gotten any positive feedback that this has worked effectively. And we have gotten feedback from the community and our own SAB members who've observed gas leaf blowers being used indiscriminately all summer. Even you could hand someone the document saying that it is a law that you can't use it, and they'll shake their head, yes, they'll throw it in their truck and then continue pulling out the electric the gas leaf blower, not electric leaf blower. So we have had some meetings with the board and the next step is really for compliance and what do we need to do potentially to the law to strengthen enforcement and compliance. So one of the ideas was, would the homeowner be subject to fines? So currently, if the homeowner is the one that's contracting the person working on their property, if they outsource their lawn care, are they even aware this is going on? We've had a very major education plan out there, so we don't really feel like any more education will do the trick. But what we have again heard anecdotally is that by the time the police or the enforcement is arriving on the property, that a report has been made that there is nobody currently doing anything that can be observed as breaking the law. So one of the things was a flyer that would alert the homeowner that there was an observed non-compliance of the law, and that this would hopefully encourage the homeowner to have a communication with their lawn care company. But so far that hasn't happened. And then also with another step to be have the inspectors issue warnings and fines, change how it's done. Right now it's the Newcastle Police, but should there be another body like there is in Scarsdale, I believe it's the building inspector, would it be someone else that should be issuing the warnings and fines? And of course, we don't want to be in a situation where we're just constantly being punitive, but Scarsdale has had a gas leaf blower law sit for many, many years, nearly 30 years, and they've now strengthened that law and their compliance is very tight. They've given presentations to this town board, maybe not everybody now
Yes, I
currently
remember.
on the board, but they have given presentations and really they say if you don't have compliance actions, then you do not have compliance. So I think that's
They
the
said
bottom
that they
line.
were successful because the ban applied to the fall season as well. That's what I recall. And they felt that that was enough to make the landscapers understand it was worth their while.
I think their point was that they have a larger season where it's banned. It's only allowed for a couple of months of the year. So it's easier for them to get compliance because the longer
It is
period that they're
They've had
Also,
the
I
law
thought-
for a long, long time. So the recent compliance was in response, the recent compliance was in response to the change in the law, and I don't have the dates, but I think it's like now nearly all year round, with exception of maybe 2 months. So that was why they had to strengthen their compliance. But they already had there was a presentation, I think 4 years ago to the town board at the time. They already had good compliance in Scarsdale. So this was now compliance on a revision of their existing ban on gas leaf blowers.
What Scarsdale had done when they were enforcing their law is they really enforced the law. So the building inspectors would go out there and people would be fined. And they were issuing those fines, and once people started getting the fines, there became much more compliance.
How big were the fines, do you know?
How big were their fines? I think they were
Like 250,
like 200, 250.
From a practical
Yes, so-
standpoint,
And it was the homeowner or the user?
homeowner also.
Homeowner and user.
Now, did we
Yes.
talk about, before getting to that step, we talked about having the door hangers
Mm-hmm.
as an interim step, but we haven't done that yet.
No.
Because we needed clarification on who do you want to be subject to fines. And
Okay.
I mean, we can make this a discussion for another day, but we really need to come to some decision on who is subject to the fines.
And when we talked about landscapers, we didn't mean the individuals, we meant the companies, right?
Well,
Because there's some
Unfortunately,
individuals who are working for companies, so who would,
the way, yes, that's how we would interpret it, but it was being interpreted as the individual holding the equipment.
Right, so we thought that
So
was
we needed to,
unfair.
right, so
Right.
you need to have at least a policy adopted where you're saying that the intention of the law is that it's the landscaping company, not the person holding the equipment.
I think you
Right,
have
so the
more
SAB
success if the homeowner's getting the fine, to
I
be perfectly
agree.
honest. I think if a resident is receiving, I think you get a notice for the first offense, you get a door hanger if whoever's responding to the call, the landscaper's no longer there, you leave a notice, and if it happens again, you get a fine.
So
Or if you're caught in the act, I think the homeowner should receive the fine.
the interpretation by the attorneys was if you want to do that, we need to amend the law. So again, this should be a bigger discussion that we should have with the town board about exactly what does the town board want to do. And if we want to do that, we should amend the law to do that.
Right, but I think that in order to create the door hangers, which we would love to do, we do have to know whether the homeowner is going to be included before we create those. And also what the procedure is and what the fines may be, et cetera, just to make sure that we have everything accurate on the door hanger.
Two things I just want to point out. Number one, there also has to be a mechanism to enforce the enforcement. And what I mean by that is we don't have the same bite as the state to say, if you don't pay this fine, what's the consequences of not paying your fine? What's gonna happen? In other words, we lack that same ability. For example, we've had things in the past, if someone had a car pass to park at the parking lot, if you don't pay your fine, you can't renew your car pass. So there's things you have to think of out of the box, how to enforce the enforcement. That's number one. Number two, just practically speaking, you really can't compare Scarsdale and their 6 and change acres to Newcastle and our 22 acres. They're little lots on top of each other for the most part to our much larger lots. Even those that are not large are just so spread out. So it's a hard apple to apple comparison. To say they have the enforcement, they've done it. Well, if you're blowing something there, 22 neighbors immediately hear it and see it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, I family in Scarsdale, so I've been there a lot, and there are many parts of Scarsdale that are very similar to Chappaqua and Newcastle and Millwood, and maybe fewer of the larger acre properties. But in those cases, there is, a lot more forested areas where someone isn't going in typically with a leaf blower. So the issue is that since this law and I'm sorry, I don't have this, was originally 1910, most of the towns around here have now implemented at least a seasonal ban on gas leaf blowers. So Newcastle, we did this in 2020. There have been 3 or 4 or 5 other towns since then. So this isn't going away. So it's not just a Newcastle issue. It's not statewide, although there have been some rumblings about possibly doing like Westchester wide, but other towns are doing it. And they're getting compliance. Scarsdale is used as an example just because they've had a very strict law in the last 2 years that is getting compliance. But I will say there are plenty of properties that are very similar to Scarsdale. And if you have 10 acres, you're not blowing 10 acres. You don't need to blow 10 acres. I think that was one of the original discussions, should it be property size, and we really took that off the table. And also we talked about the expenses, is there additional expenses? I asked I do outsource my landscaping, and I asked them to stop leaf blowing many years ago. They're in and out of my acre property, part of my property is forested, in 6 minutes. Versus they used to be there for 15. So no one can tell me that their prices are increasing when the time is decreasing. But it's just a matter of it is difficult to communicate to the landscapers there isn't a general list of landscapers. We also discussed possibly doing letters, if we wanted to do a letter from the town, just warning. But basically, what happens is once the word is out that fines are being set and put on people will start acting at the company level, is what our hope is.
Right, and then I suspect once there's a critical mass of people who are using electric blowers, then it becomes public pressure for the one or two who are using the gas, but right
Mhm.
now, what I see is everybody is using the gas. I walk around my
Right.
my neighborhood and they're all over. And they just use it without hesitation.
And also
So
the
I've seen it and
Yeah, without
it's-
without a consequence.
yeah.
You know, just
Yeah,
like
the
anything else.
consequences. I also say the pattern, I moved to Chappaqua almost 30 years ago, you weren't using a leaf blower at all. And then leaf blowers become more popular, so then they became the normal behavior of, oh, let's just blow it, which it wasn't necessary. So we have had a very large education plan about don't blow, you know, leave the leaves alone, grass cycle and things like that, but it's really getting that message to the landscapers and then the homeowners who may or may not have time to really address, like, you know, they're outsourcing that, right?
Yeah,
So
and
to
say
the
a lot of
expertise,
times
it's
the
becoming
homeowners aren't there when this is happening,
Yeah.
and that's why I think the door hangers are really important. Even if there's not clarity about any further consequences, I would think we shouldn't delay on having some sort of a notification system to the homeowners that there's been a report. Even if there isn't a next step, there's a fine known.
Right, because our next opportunity would be in a couple months. So when
So we could have a door hanger right now that just says there was noncompliance on your property and not talk about the homeowner being fined.
It could be enough just to let
let them
homeowner
know.
Cause cause I'm not home all day, if I come home and there's a door hanger and I find out that my landscaper was using the gas blower when I've asked him not to blow anything, I'm gonna call him up and I'm gonna say, hey, I asked you not to do this, I found out that you were. I mean, I think that just brings the homeowner more into the conversation.
We could do that as an interim step, and then the town board could have a further discussion about, do you want to start having homeowners be fined? Although I think Jeremy's point about getting them to actually pay the fine, I guess, is
What is
a
it
good
tied
one.
to?
Well,
Yeah.
we can talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll-
And
Yeah.
what about
But I
our-
don't think it's a
we'll-
reason
we'll
to
figure that
delay
out.
the door hanger to
Okay.
notify the homeowners,
Okay.
that's my
Yeah.
opinion.
Because I
Alright.
thought we were doing the door hangers last year. We didn't know that you were waiting for that information.
Well, at a minimum, we need clarity that it's not the person holding the equipment that would be subject to the fine, that it is the landscaping company.
unless it's the homeowner.
So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
original idea of enforcement, which was when the police department was doing it, was that it was the operator
Right.
solely.
That's
So
my
so that's why,
understanding,
right,
yeah.
so we have to expand that.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
the other question would be, going back to what Jeremy said, have you ever had any issue, and I don't know what the scenario would be, where you've issued a fine to a company and they haven't paid?
I don't know all those answers,
Would it
Joe,
be?
but I think probably companies may be more
Yeah, I don't know how it
responsive because they're, I don't know how many companies are here in town that would be applicable to, but
I mean, like an electrician who isn't doing something properly, right? You know, or something like, there must be some sort
and
of
then you can't pull a
fines.
permit.
You can't pull a permit, okay, right, so that's a cause
So
and
right,
effect.
right, so
This
that
one
may-
isn't as much cause and effect.
Right.
So what we
Mhm.
try to combat though is that the landscaper starts saying, woe is me, I'm gonna have to go out of business. But the point is that this has now been 4 years, it's been almost 8 years in the making, and we are not the only town doing this, and the towns all surrounding us have been implementing seasonal
Do you know
gas
which
plants.
towns those are? Because
We
again,
have a
talking
whole
about
list.
critical mass, once
Yeah.
enough towns do it, then it
Yep.
won't be worth
Mount
It'll be
Kisco, I
worth
believe,
it
just
for
did
them.
it, Irvington, all of them, yeah, we
There
have a map.
Irvington, that's
We
not
have a
exactly
map.
too close, but
We have a map.
There are towns that have
That
year-round
Irvington's a
bans.
newer one, yeah.
Larchmont was the first one, White Plains has adopted it, and I think
Bedford,
there's a
Pleasantville,
not year-round bans.
but not
No.
year round, not year round, no,
Yeah.
but I think the point
Right.
is that there are seasonal bans that are matching what Newcastle is doing,
yeah, I mean,
There's
basically
like-
the landscapers don't wanna buy new equipment.
right? But
And-
they've
and
had
the gas
5,
blowers
10
are
years of
easier.
they've had 5 years of notification.
Or just train, or
Right.
just change their habits through training too, I mean,
It's a lot of things.
but I think,
Yeah.
I think involving the homeowner as, they're the one who has the power of the purse with them, with the landscapers,
Mhm.
really, because they're paying them to do it, and if they say, if you don't follow the law and my instructions, I'll find someone who will. I think that's why you need the homeowners to be on board with enforcing it with
To have the
their
conversation.
contractor, yeah.
And then also then we can get better feedback from the homeowners, but the one thing was that everybody was saying, oh, well, it'll raise our prices. And we countered, if you're not spending hours unnecessarily blowing, which is what was happening, blowing after every grass cut for 5 or 10 minutes,
I think that's the other thing that people may not be putting together is it's not a question of how do you blow the leaves, it's whether you do it or not.
right. And this is grass, cause it's a seasonal ban, so you can blow the leaves with a gas leaf blower in the fall.
Okay, guys, so
So,
where
yeah.
are we on the agenda? We're running like
Yeah,
half
we're
an
running,
hour
I
over.
know,
we're
yeah.
Solutioning rather than
So yeah, but I
presenting,
think
yes.
what we understand is that we need to provide you with more clarity about consequences and the information you could put on the door hangers, and we'll be on our way with that.
Yep.
And that'll be the interim step before we
A
start
decision on the
applying
homeowner.
fines and
Yep.
figuring out what the consequences are
Yep.
And who
to
would put
those
the door
fines.
hanger
Okay.
on the door?
Well,
Yeah.
let's get to
Cross
that
that
at
bridge.
another
So let's-
time.
yeah.
We're not
So
gonna,
You guys.
let's just, this is our last slide,
This
this
is
is
our last slide.
okay.
Yeah.
So future initiatives, okay, so we would like to readdress the curbside food scrap recycling and as on a voluntary basis by residents. It's a huge issue because of the weight and it costs a lot for tipping fees, but also it slows down the process of the incineration. So there's a lot of reasons to try and take this out of the waste stream wherever we can, if we can. Fleet electrification, we'd like to step up a little bit on that. The only EV that the town has purchased was in 2017. We're kind of behind the curve on that. I'd see electric landscaping equipment. Originally, we had the idea that potentially one of the more visible fields could be maintained with all electric equipment. I'm just saying, this is not necessarily it, but the rec field over here, and you could hang a banner on the fence in front of it that the town maintains it all with electric equipment as an inspiration to residents. Building decarbonization is okay, so building decarbonization now?
No.
Okay. Building decarbonization is a huge issue, and that's really solar, residential and municipal, and also air source or geothermal heat pumps, air source water heaters. It's estimated that for the state to get to its 2025 or 2050 goals of the CLCPA, that it's going to take up to $100 billion in investment into buildings to try and decarbonize them. And then zero waste in town events, which we'd like to see at least recycling at every event starting, but it'd be great if you could get vendors that use only compostable materials for their food, etc. And then eventually, hopefully, do some kind of food
We will
scrap
try.
recycling. But
Yes.
so that's our last issue. You wanna go back?
Before you go, I'm gonna steal it for one minute. You mentioned loads, 1/3 of the loads are incinerated.
Yes.
Average person doesn't know what a load means. What's a load? And I think it'd be
It's
more.
the dumpster at the,
So I'm not asking you to tell me, I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
someone should understand what a load means. That's a lot, that's a lot.
I got it to be 1/3 of what they
It's a roll-off
collected.
container.
Yeah, so someone
Those
should
roll-off
build,
containers at the recycling
so
center.
if someone saw an image of a
one-
full one with
Right,
knowing that's gonna get incinerated, someone standing next to it to see how big it is, I mean, that I think helpful.
That's a good visual.
The other thing is oil disposal, even if people aren't changing the oil of their own cars, they're changing their lawnmowers, their generators, their whatever they have. What are they doing with that? They're probably throwing it in the trash can because they don't know what to do with it, and it's only this much. So I think that people should understand that. I know people have asked me about, what do you do with the oil? So you don't see it a lot because it's small, but I think it probably in this community, there's plenty of people who are using this amount of oil and changing the oil of their home product. And then last but not least, I referenced this before and actually sent it to Ken, to consider, we have green pass cars and hybrids that are parked at the parking lot, not driving around town. What's the point of that? So the gas guzzler drives around? So I don't know how many other municipalities do it, but consider, don't be upset with the permitting. But consider grandfathering in people now, but something that starts in the future where going forward at X point of time, it's the gas guzzler that stays here and you get a green pass for that car. that's only usable obviously in this town, and then the electric cars driving around.
So you'd have to, you're
You
thinking
gotta
someone
flip
would
it.
have to prove
You'd
that
have
they
to prove
have
that you
one
have
of
both.
Right,
these.
right, you have to
and
do that
you-
anyway, you have to come and register the car, so it just seems like you were talking about the lessening the load that we're producing in town. You would certainly do that with the however many 50 spaces we have of those cars, so.
I'd rather
Just a
get
thought.
everyone to get an electric one instead.
I'm just gonna say that we just did the statistics for this, the CEC campaign, for filing for that, and from June 1st of last year through the end of the year, there were 153 EVs registered in 10514 Chappaqua and 10546 Millwood. So there is pretty good adoption.
How
We
many
can always
not
make it better.
EVs, do you
Huh?
know?
I'm sorry?
How many of how many registrations do
I
you know?
don't, I could look that up if you want, but 60% were Teslas, not surprisingly.
So, anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to this slide for a second, just to see think about whether you feel like the SAB should be involved in other areas. This is what we think we should be doing. And whether there's other areas that you'd like us to get involved with.
I had a question actually about the
Think about that.
student,
Yeah.
the student type activities. Do you reach out to Greeley students specifically, and what about the other
Can I do it when I get home?
schools
It's easier
that
for me to,
comprise Newcastle residents?
I never forget you.
So far, it's the students come to us.
Okay.
And they ask for help, advice, et cetera, we're not actually going out
Okay.
and asking students to, but with the connection of we have now 3 students on the SAB. And so they're all high school students, it's not
I
at a
just,
different
I
level.
think, I guess my real point is are we just Greeley focused, or are we?
Austin or Bedford, Austin.
Yeah, the other school districts and high schools that our residents attend.
Right, so we had some students a bunch of years ago do a presentation on like an app or something like this, so it's really the students coming
Yeah.
to us.
Mhm.
You know, like you have Bedford 2030, which has the green, what's it called, the green, there's some big green light awards. A lot of Greeley students and the students from all over the area go to that. But
Well, the information can be in the newsletter
Yeah.
for students and then they come to you.
Food for thought is to maybe
Reach out to the other districts.
so that they know, you know, that you guys are a resource
The advisory
for
board is here, yeah.
Newcastle. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's a great idea. I think also the because we really have had some just amazing feedback from the students and participation, and it's been very inspiring for us.
I think that's a wonderful
It's been very inspiring for
role
us.
that you guys are playing.
And the advocacy
I
that
love
they're
their
going to.
podcasts.
Oh, the podcasts are great, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
We really appreciate all your time and all your work.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So satisfying.
So welcome back, everyone. This is the second part of our town board meeting. We have just finished our work session and we are going to go into our town board meeting. So Lino, remind me, we don't have to make a
Nope.
separate motion for this.
Go
Okay.
right into it.
All right. Jill, do we have any announcements?
I just have a short administrator's report.
Okay, good.
The second half of school taxes are due tomorrow. So that's Wednesday, January 31st without penalty. If you, as opposed to your bank, are responsible for paying property taxes, the deadline for paying without penalty is tomorrow. The tax office is open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. There's a drop box downstairs on the first floor of Town Hall, right outside the police station, that's available to the public to drop off payments until 7 p.m. tomorrow night. If you choose to mail your tax payment, make sure you see the post office affix a U.S. postmark to the envelope. We accept a valid U.S. postmark as proof of timely payment for checks that are received by mail. Our online system is also available until 11:59 on January 31st. Everyone's clock is a little bit different. Don't cut it that close. We've had some very unhappy people in the past. It is a 10% penalty, so please get the payments in.
And we don't have the ability to waive it.
No, we do not. We're sorry. And last but not least, a really big thank you to New York State Senator Pete Harcum. The town has started the process of replacing the old oil burner at the Chappaqua train station at Bobo's with clean electric split heat and air conditioning units. The 4 new units that are being installed will provide both heat and air conditioning to Bobo's and move the town away from its reliance on fossil fuel. We thank Senator Harcum for approving our application for the CREST grant that underwrote this clean energy upgrade.
Okay, thank you, Jill. I will defer my supervisor's report to the town e-newsletter. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to take public comments. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to make a public comment? Please come up and announce your name and
Yes. I said
the
I would do
town you
this.
reside in.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I feel like I should be taller. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Yes, Karen Basic. I am here as, well, they don't know I'm here, but I'm here for the Chappaqua Garden Club. I am on the board and I am the head of the Garden Juniors program. And, just to back her up, I got this lovely stamp paid for my taxes. They're very lovely. If you have to pay your taxes, just to let people know. Very nice. And I'm here to request something. Last year, sadly, we didn't really have an Earth Day celebration because there were a lot of things that happened. But we managed to put a card table up at Gedney Park. I was on the conservation board at that time, and thanks to the Rotary, we had 25 trees, red maple trees to hand out, which were more popular than people would think because a gentleman ran and he said, my wife said, you better get over there and get one of those trees before they run out. So it was definitely something that was important to people. And in speaking to the environmental groups around town, people are interested and they would like to come. 2 years ago, we had a lovely festival with tents, and we worked with Christine, who's just lovely, in town, and we had the tents and tables and students, and the Pollinator Pathway came, the Conservation Board was there, the Sustainability Board was there, the Garden Club was there. We gave away plants, and we'd really like to do it again this year. And somebody outside, well, who's going to spearhead? And I said, me. I'm happy to do that. So, and there's a lot of serious reasons for it. Some of you may have seen in the newspaper, they talked about decline of the songbirds, which is very sad. And we'd like people to be aware of small things that you can do on your property. I can't let go of that statistic that 90% of our town is privately owned. So that means all the decisions that you make really impact all of us and the environment. And right now, some of the birds that we love, like the mourning dove, are down 10%. The American robin is down 17%. The American goldfinch, which resides in our town very sweetly. You could watch them, as I do when I walk around. They fly from food source to food source. So they fly from the shed garden to the pocket park, then they fly over to the parking lot. I've actually watched them make this trail. So, and when there's food sources available for them, which is something we like to bring up with people on Earth Day, we can do something to save them. And then, my prop, I need 2 hands for this. This happened in my home, and this was, if you can see, the little, my son caught this. My friend painted this for me, but this is a robin's nest, and he was very excited. My son was very, I'm too far. My son was very excited to find that because he was tall. I didn't see it. He saw it, and then he started photographing it, and we watched them go from egg to chick and then to bird. And for any family, it's a really magical experience for them. And since I started following the advice of the Garden Club and the native plant community, I have seen the robins return. One year they went to my neighbors. I joke with her that because they put up fancy siding, they decided to find a new place. But since we've learned about providing food source and shelter, and we don't use pesticides, I have had a return. Last year, we watched them from egg to chick to flying off. Very exciting. And I counted as I went around the yard, just within the eyesight for me, 6 nests.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like every person in town can be doing something to help. And if we are all having a series of nests, if we all know what to do, we will help increase the population. And we've been able to save the eagle is doing great. So these small songbirds need our help, and we're here with lots of advice. And all of the other environmental committees really enjoy being with the town members, giving advice. I talked to Melanie and I said, would you do the plant power hour at the garden club where you would give your expertise for an hour to people who may have questions about their yard? And she said yes. So all that chatter, just I hope that you will consider it. I know it technically Earth Day is Monday, which is also the first day of Passover, but in speaking with other members of the community, they seem to think that Saturday before then would be okay.
That's the 20th, right?
I believe so, yes. And I am happy, and I thank you to the Rotary for the trees for last year, and also I can't reach the man, but Peter from the Rotary showed up to our pollinator planting at the library. And I can't give him his thank you notes, I'll give it to you. For last year, we had a large, it's expanding. You know, we had the library planting where we reseeded. There's a lot of good work being done at the library in terms of the native plants. We want to put in some berry shrubs next year for the birds that are frequenting the area. We've also got the children, my little ones, planted the seeds that we harvested from the plants that were planted this summer. So the cycle continues. And we also have been approached by the church next to the library that they would like to start their own pollinator garden. They've also discussed with the sustainability board. I know at the temple, one of the nursery school teachers has also done a winter sowing program. So there's a lot of interest in town, I think.
That's a
for
wonderful
Earth Days.
thing, Karen. I just want to let you know I'm 100% in favor of
Yay!
having Earth Day. I'm sad it didn't happen last year and the year before. I saw it all in action and you did a fantastic job. I know you were dressed as a bee.
Or a butterfly.
Or a butterfly,
I know,
one or the other. I've seen you in both.
Usually I'm in costume, yes.
I thought it was a fantastic program. Everyone was excited and I'd love to see it happen again.
Yes, and you know, I know I've been practicing this speech walking around town for days. The other thing, when I happened to be at a table with kitchen table with a bunch of environmental experts who are extremely knowledgeable, and I said, what do you see for the town of Newcastle as the greatest environmental threat? And without skipping a beat, they said water. And there were a lot of discussions about water and how to there's a lot, I mean, I know myself, we've spent $20,000 between pumps and also my neighbor and I both had our septic tanks affected by that. So there's like really serious issues that people can help neighborhood residents with that we're all facing. I mean, I now have basically, as my daughter's like, oh, I see we have now a water feature and I have to replan now redirecting that water in another space. So there's a lot of good conversation just from what I was observing before that could be shared with the community. And we love to do it. We enjoy it.
So we will look forward to working with you on that and seeing if there's
Parks and Rec.
a committee that makes sense to
You said
to work
with
with?
Christine Gray in Parks and Rec?
Oh,
Is that-
she's lovely. Yes, we worked with her. She was
So
lovely.
Ally is our
lovely.
Parks and Recs liaison,
And
so
thanks again to
we'll
the
make sure
Rotary.
that we'll work out the details
Yes,
with
maybe
you
we
and
can
we really
report
look
the
forward to
Rotary.
it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
thank you for taking this time and I love your prop. It's absolutely beautiful.
My friends are really good. Yeah, no, and it's an exciting thing. I and thank you very much everyone
Thank
for
you
your
so
time.
much, Karen,
Thank you.
really appreciate
Thank you.
all this work that you
Does
do.
Christine know about your request? Did you ask her?
Oh, I didn't request. I was asking for permission to have the day. I didn't even ask. I was talking about that I had worked with her and she was lovely. Absolutely lovely. I did not make a
I'll
request.
let her know that she's been requested.
She's been
Okay.
because she's so lovely.
Okay. Oh, especially
Yeah, no, I
remember to
think
bring that in.
I think it's wonderful that you're willing to spearhead an effort to make sure that we celebrate Earth Day and
So many people.
share the learnings.
And you need to share yourself, and for Pete's sake, we gotta get Pete Harkham there maybe, he's got a lot to tell people, I'm sure too, so about what's going on.
You can ask him. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other public comment? Please come up and state your name and where you live.
Need to say that I voted.
I requested you.
Thank you. My name is Arthur Grant. I live in Chappaqua. And thank you, Ms. Tipp, for not asking us to give our street address. I always felt that was a bit invasive. Some people on the board and some people in town have been talking on social media about an organization called Westpac. And I have been a supporter and member of Westpac for about 15 years. And I just wanted to give some background about the organization that maybe would clear some things up for people. If you go to their website, you'll see we have been a leading force for progressive social change in Westchester County, New York since 1974. We have been educating, agitating, and organizing for a more just and peaceful world, an end to militarism and racism, and a more fair economy that works for all. In my view, those are all good things. Those are things I support. The WES in Westpac stands for Westchester. And as I mentioned, the organization has been in Westchester for 50 years. The office is in White Plains. It used to be in Pleasantville. And I would estimate that about 15 Westpac supporters live here, including me. Why is this organization constantly referred to as an outside group? Why do Newcastle residents write? And this was something someone forwarded to me, I think from someone's Facebook page, that Westpac supporters are descending on our peaceful hamlet, dividing and disrupting us, causing chaos. I would ask, who is being divisive? Westpac supporters are regular people, like me, who go to farmers market, eat at our restaurants, shop at our stores, go to our kids' soccer games, just like everybody else. Now, what does Westpac do? If you go to the website and click on what we do, community gardening, criminal justice, economic and human rights, environment and food justice, militarism and foreign policy, immigration, movement building, racial justice, climate change, and also Israel-Palestine. On October 10th, Westpac published on their website a statement about the Hamas bombings and hostage-taking and the resulting events. It starts as follows. We in the peace and justice community are shattered by the ongoing death and destruction in Israel and Palestine. We are in grief over the loss of Palestinian and Israeli lives in the past few days, months, and years, and are fearful about the toll escalating violence will bring in the near future. Now, you may or may not agree with the rest of that statement, but if you disagree with it, I think it's important, important to know that the statement was written by the current president of the Westpac board, Howard Horowitz, a Jewish man. Now, my final comment about Westpac. The executive director, who is the one employee, and by the way, Westpac has had one employee for decades, grew up in Chappaqua and went to Horace Greeley. She graduated salutatorian of her class, and gave the speech at graduation, the student speech. Her siblings live in Chappaqua. So there's another connection between Westpac and this town, although I truly believe that by being a Westchester-based organization for half a century should be enough to not be labeled as an outside organization. Finally, changing the subject, a few words about the ceasefire protest scheduled for Saturday in town. This protest was planned and organized by Horace Greeley High School student members of a Young Social Democrats of America school chapter. Student organized. The students reached out to Westpac and other local peace and justice organizations and their allies and asked for our participation. Naturally, the students want as many participants as possible. And I don't think I need to remind anyone that people, whether Newcastle residents or not.
I apologize to you,
Yes.
I have an emergency, I have to take a call.
Sure.
I'm not, and I appreciate you being here, I do apologize, I have to.
No
take a call.
problem, I
Genuinely,
understand.
I apologize.
I understand. I'm almost done anyway. Have a right to peaceful protest in Chappaqua. I was taken aback when I read Mr. Salan's statement on January 21st, which included, quote, "The town board doesn't want to see a, quote, ceasefire march on Holocaust Remembrance Day or any day in the Chappaqua hamlet." Now, 2 weeks ago, I saw most of you, including Mr. Salan, take an oath to abide by the Constitution of the United States. And as an elected representative of the people, Mr. Salan is now proclaiming that you don't want your own constituents to ever engage in a legal, peaceful march to redress their grievances because you believe, and I'm directing this to Mr. Salan, Mr. Salan, because you believe that you won't agree with the protesters' point of view. I would just like to ask the board whether statements like those from Mr. Salan and similar statements that some other board members have made about Westpac and other outside organizations are divisive or inclusive, and whether you all are leading by example of how you want Newcastle residents to respect and listen to each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comments online?
No hands are raised.
Okay, so we will move on to our public hearing. We left a public hearing open last week on a local law to amend Chapter 33 and Chapter 34 regarding town prosecutor and residency requirements. And so we would like to continue that public hearing now. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Lino, do you just want to give a little recap of this public hearing?
Sure, this is, again, continuation of a public hearing whereby we are amending the local law in town regarding town prosecutors that are required to be a resident of the town in order to be appointed as a town prosecutor. So we changed, amended Chapter 33 and 34 of the code to basically state that if you are looking to be a town prosecutor, you need to be a town resident of Newcastle. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. All right then, I think my understanding was that that was always the intent.
Correct.
We have a number of applications and, people from the community understand and have discretion and,
And again, you already have residency requirements in your
Okay.
code already, so this is
Yeah.
just one is as to the prosecutor, you have the
Being
right to make
consistent.
that a resident requirement.
okay, so at this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone in the audience who has a comment on amending this local law. Seeing no one in the audience, is there anyone online with a comment on the amendments? No hands are raised. Okay, at this time, I'm inclined to close the public hearing. We kept it open because we started it during a work session, which was, not the way we usually have public hearings. So we will keep it open for written comments for 10 days.
I would have it only till Friday.
Yeah.
Till this Friday,
Yeah,
that,
but he's already opened
this
it and
has
he was
not-
duly noticed at the work session, so you're okay.
Right, we have not
So-
had any comments on this,
Yeah.
so Friday would be
At
reasonable,
noon.
Lino, is that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm good
Okay,
with
so I
Friday.
move that we close the oral part of the public hearing and keep the written comments open until this Friday, February, February second, 5 p.m.
At noon.
Noon, at noon, okay. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So that takes us to our consent agenda. Let's see, Holly, do you wanna get us started?
Sure. I move to adopt items 1 through 10 as listed in the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to approve the payment of claims in the amount of $487,806.91. 2023 expenditures totaling $376,879.29, and 2024 expenditures totaling $110,927.62, listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detail voucher detail reports, all dated January 29th, 2024. Checks will be issued and mailed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, January 31st, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Holly, go ahead.
I can keep going since there's only 3 of us. I move to authorize the appointment of Kathleen Durazins as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term of 5 years, effective January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2028.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Go ahead, Holly. You're
Oh.
taking the whole thing?
No, I was just gonna do one more.
Okay. Go ahead.
I move to authorize the reappointment of Alexandra Rosenberg and Stacy Sands as co-chairs of the Holocaust and Human Rights Committee for a 2-year term effective retroactively from January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to authorize the appointment of the following individuals to the Climate Smart Communities Task Force for a 2-year term effective April 13th, 2023, retroactively from April 13th, 2023 through April 12th, 2025. Sabrina Charney Hall, Jennifer Mebis Flagg, Bart Carey, Victoria Alzapidi, Alicia Malloy, Kent Thomas, and Lauren Cascone.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to authorize the increase in pay rate from $15 to $16 per hour for Emily Moskowitz and Nora Morton and Catherine Fenlon, who serve as recreation attendants within the Art Center, effective retroactively January 1st, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize the hiring of Julia McGrinder for the position of recreation attendant to work special events within the Recreation and Parks Department at the hourly rate of $18 per hour effective February 1st, 2024.
Holly, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Move to authorize the hiring of Kathleen Byrne for the position of part-time receptionist within the Department of Public Works at the hourly rate of $20 per hour effective February 5th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you.
Have a good evening.